We're very fortunate to have Rick Huey here from Washington State Ferries, and he's going to give us an update on the marine biologist project where they're looking out for the mammals, for the marine life while they're doing the project on the new terminal. Rick.
Great. Okay, well, thank you. And I'll start sharing my screen here in just a minute. I'm trained as a state employee to give a safety message at the start of every meeting. And usually when we're in a meeting room, it's don't trip over the projector cord. Here's where you go if we have a building fire. Here's what happens if you have an earthquake. And we can't really do that today, but I do want to make sure everyone's heard about the smoke alert, that there may be smoke from California and Oregon rolling in tonight, and tonight and tomorrow might be pretty bad. So it's a good thing to close your windows, button up, and do your best over the next day and a half and hope it clears out later tomorrow. So that's my safety message as a state employee. I've done my training. So here we go. Start sharing my screen. And what I'm going to do here is give an update on where we are with the Mukilteo terminal, and then in particular the biology monitoring that we've done. So you can see a lot of you have probably seen these different renderings of the new terminal. So I'll go through these quickly. The ferry booths that we'll see here, toward the end of the year. The other side of the terminal, and I'm going to try to show this virtual tour that some of you might have seen. It's on YouTube, and it just generally goes through things as they were in June. And a lot of progress has been made even since June. There's a lot of paving that's gone on. So here's the front of the terminal. I've been up in the building, and it's really beautiful up there. I really think that it's even more impressive than our Coleman building. So I think this is a premier terminal building in the entire ferry system. So it's just really nice in there. And it's not even finished yet, of course. But you can see the woodwork. And when they get all the art and everything in, it's going to be spectacular. So I'll just let this roll forward a bit. So here off to the left, you can see the marine structures where we do all the pile driving. And that's what I'll be talking about.
Rick, we're not seeing anything other than your PowerPoint presentation page.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. So let's stop this.
I'm going to guess it opened in a different window. So you'd have to switch to sharing a different window.
Yeah, we're going to give up on that and be old school and go right to that. Okay, there we are. Anyway, that presentation was wonderful. I enjoyed it. So some of the highlights here from Mukilteo are, many of you knew, of course, we removed the old pier and we took out over 4,000 tons of creosote. We've got advanced stormwater treatment at the new terminal. It's a fantastic building, a green building, solar panels on the roof, and a lot of monitoring to prevent injury of marine species during pile driving, which I'll be talking about. So here's a list of the endangered species near the terminal: southern resident killer whale, humpbacks, marbled murrelet, an endangered seabird, bull trout and their habitat, salmon, their habitat, steelhead, and potentially some rockfish that may be in the area. So we did an Endangered Species Act consultation that set up many of the ways that we behave on the project to make sure we don't endanger these species further. And so again, some of these species, salmon and steelhead, rockfish, potentially green sturgeon and eulachon, though they're very rare. Southern resident killer whale, these are the fish eaters, primarily Chinooks. humpback whale, which we're seeing a lot more of than we used to in the past. And the endangered marbled murrelet. This is a seabird that dives and swims underwater to capture forage fish. And so one thing we do besides the Endangered Species Act is we comply with the Marine Mammal Protection Act, which means we get a permit to do limited harassment of marine mammals when we make noise in the water from our pile driving. And so the noise is of several different types. Very close into the pile, there could be an injury zone where you can actually hurt a marine mammal. And further out, there's a noise zone that may interfere with their hearing when they're out hunting or communicating with each other. So we really try to limit this work, but this is really necessary to drive a pile and make a new terminal. So we're going to take a look back at the beginning of the project, you know, when the Tank Farm Pier was still in place. And here I am hard at work. We were surveying the pier before the project began. I had a hard hat on, so when I went under the pier, if a piece fell on me, I'd be okay. I don't think that really would have worked, so that was not very bright to go under the pier, but I did a few times. And so here's a quick look at before and after. And we've got a, hopefully we'll be able to see this. This is a very quick video that some of you might have seen before of the pier going away. So watch quickly because it'll happen pretty fast, and hopefully you're seeing this. They start in the middle and work out. And then they'll come back, do some cleanup, and then take everything back to the inshore. That looks pretty quick, but it actually took about 8 months, which was under schedule. And there they are finishing up, and it is gone. So with the new terminal monitoring, you know, we have large steel piles we're putting in. And so this is a look at one of our monitoring zones, which you can see is pretty large. So it goes all the way out toward Gedney Hat Island. We have monitors that ride the ferry, monitors on land. We have a monitor over in Langley that's watching out for the southern resident killer whales, because we're required to shut down that pile work if they come toward the noise zone. The southern residents are so endangered that we don't want to harass them at all. So we just stop pile work if they come our way. But for this project, so far, we've not seen the southern residents come in when we've been doing pile driving. So the most common marine mammals, you're not surprised probably, are the harbor seal and California sea lions that we see. And over our years, we've been building this project, which is the pier removal in 2015-16, the start of the terminal 16-17, and then in 18-19, we had a break in pile driving. And then in 19-20, we're in that season right now, and we'll continue on till 2021. But to date, we've seen over 1,800 harbor seals. And that doesn't always mean there are 1,800 different ones. Sometimes we just see the same one coming back and forth and through. And of all those harbor seals, about 500 or so have been in our harassment zone. So they haven't been harmed, but they have had their hearing interrupted when they came close enough to the pile. California sea lions over 1,000, and again about 280 in the harassment zone. None of them harmed, no injuries. Some others, we've seen transient killer whales. The transients are the marine mammal hunters, unlike the southern residents, and Steller sea lion and harbor porpoise. So we've seen 95 harbor porpoise in our larger monitoring area, and 34 came close enough to potentially be harassed. 24 transient killer whales, or excuse me, 28. Four of them came close enough to maybe be harassed. 8 Steller sea lions, and 2 within our harassment zone. And then some of our less common marine mammals for this project are the northern elephant seal, Dall's porpoise, humpbacks, and grays. And we know the grays aren't uncommon in the harbor, but our construction season generally ends at February 15th, and the Puget Sound grays usually come in after February 15th, usually early April, sometimes a bit earlier. So the reason they're uncommon for our project doesn't mean that they're uncommon, in the bay itself. So during our project, we've seen only 2 Dall's porpoise, no harassment, only 1 humpback whale, no grays because generally we're done with our work before they come into the harbor, and no elephant seals to date. So marbled murrelet, these are endangered seabirds that during impact pile driving, there may be an injury zone. So if they were fishing close to us, if they were swimming underwater, looking for forage fish, they could be injured. And we're required to shut down impact pile driving if they're that close to us. And so what we've seen in 15, 16, I saw 2 individuals when I was monitoring from the lighthouse. It's interesting that in 16, 17, we saw 150. That doesn't mean they were all just, individual birds who might have been doing multiple sightings of the same birds. 17, 18, we had no monitoring because we had a break in pile driving. But it's interesting that in 19, 20, we've only seen 3. So there's quite a difference between 1920 and 2 years earlier that we really can't explain. It could be that 16, 17 was a great year for things to eat, that forage fish were common in the area, and there was plenty for them to come into the bay and eat and take back to the nest. It could be that 1920 was not as good a year, but it's difficult to tell. So the next phase of our project, we're getting close to the end of pile driving for the new terminal. We will be back out on the 21st and 22nd of this month to remove some temporary steel piles that we use for work platforms. And that may be the end of the pile driving and removal for the new terminal. And the new terminal is scheduled to open before the end of the year. After the new year, we'll be taking down the old terminal. So we'll be removing all the piles that are left in the old terminal, and that should be done again by February 15th. And we will be using, as we are now, the lighthouse. We're very thankful that the Historical Society has allowed us to use the lighthouse all these years. It's been a wonderful observation point, and we've worked hard to take care of it. Some of the things we're doing that are new is we're trying to communicate more when we have someone in the lighthouse. So if someone sees the top door open, and they will know that hopefully one of our monitors are up there and no one just left it open and it doesn't need to be addressed. So recently we've got information on the city website and the WSF social media. We're hoping for another article in the Beacon that will talk about our use of the lighthouse. And we're going to have a new sign in the lighthouse on the 21st that explains not just that we're using it, but why we're using it. So it's been wonderful. I got to spend almost a month up there during the pier removal, and I had a great time. I didn't even want to come down, but they made me come back to the office eventually. So just a few general words now. Our data right now is just from 2008 to 17, just the amount of creosote we've removed. And so this includes the Tank Farm Pier. It includes part of our Coleman project. So we're almost up to 24,000 tons of creosote removed from Puget Sound from our terminals. And we're going to be adding more, of course, as we update our data and continue pulling out from the Mukilteo terminal. We're still pulling out creosote from the Coleman. And one thing I did was try to figure out, well, how much is 24,000 tons? It's about 16,000 Priuses stacked one on top of the other, or 4 Wenatchee Jumbo 2s, fully loaded, all vehicles, 2,500 passengers, obviously pre-COVID. That's how heavy that much creosote is. So that's a lot of that wood out of Puget Sound, which can be toxic to marine mammals. And that is my presentation. This is a ribbon seal that actually showed up in Marysville a number of years ago, found some snow and was very happy. Ribbon seals are usually way far up north, so this was quite an unusual occurrence. Okay, thank you.
Rick, we have one question. Is the new terminal going to have one slip or two?
I believe the new terminal has one slip like the current terminal. So it'll be, the standard will be the 2-boat schedule. But the great advantage is it's going to have the overhead loading. So instead of walking off the deck, you'll be able to walk off the overhead like you do Kingston Edmonds. And that always moves people faster and will mean a quicker turnaround of vessels being able to come in and leave. Plus, we've got that, very large new holding area down below, and that's going to pull people off the hill and will be more efficient in getting cars on and off the boat too. So we hope that will help with our schedule and help keep things on time.
Thank you. And then there's one follow-up question that it has to do with parking at the new terminal, asking what about it?
Yeah, and as the ferries biologist, I'm afraid I'm not very good at parking questions. So
Okay.
I'd refer you to, if you go to our website about the Mukilteo construction, you can ask questions to Diane Rhodes, who's our communications person. And so there's a link there where you can ask your questions about parking and all the kind of things that non-engineers like me don't know anything about.